I ended up spending the winter in the Tune, and I just wanted to go over the systems that I set up and what went well and what didn't with each one of those systems. One of the first things I did when I got the Tune was start adding some insulation, and I really focused on 3 areas. The first being the bed of the truck. I really just used the factory Tacoma rubber mat and threw a bathroom mat on top of that. I didn't know if that was going to be enough, and I thought my feet might be cold, but that was never an issue, and it worked great. The second area was pretty easy. I just bought the insulation kit from Tune themselves. It ended up working great, kept a lot of the heat in, as well as when you're in the morning in the desert, it helps kind of reflect some of that heat out. Another unintended benefit from the insulation kit is it makes it a lot quieter while you're sleeping. So if you're ever sleeping in a turnout just by a road, or even if you're in the middle of nowhere and a car drives by, this is going to make it substantially quieter. And so I really, just for that reason alone, I would recommend it. One of the little hacks that I did with the insulation kit is add these little string extenders so it's easier to clip the bungees in the morning. Kind of a small thing, not a big deal, but after I did it, I was like, man, I should have probably just done that earlier. The last section that I insulated was the roof. It does great keeping some of the heat from the heater in, as well as keeping some of the sun's heat out. Also, it keeps a lot of the light out. So if you're sleeping under a street lamp, it gets really bright in the Tune. You're gonna have something block it. And at least for me, this insulation did a great job. So when I bought the Tune, I had the most questions about the heater. And to skip to the point, it works great, and I would really recommend it to anybody. But there are a few quirks. First quirk with this heating setup is that you never know how much fuel you have unless you just fill the bottle up. And even then, it seems like some attendants will get it way more full than other people, and it's just really hard to figure out. I'm sure some people will be able to say, oh, you know, I can pick that bottle up and tell you if there's enough fuel for the night. I just don't believe you. There's just no way that you could ever possibly do that with any like high degree of accuracy. What I found is that it's really cold, and if you're at higher altitudes, I would plan on more of like 2 nights out of the bottle. If you're a little lower in altitude and the nights are warmer, like 40 or 50 degrees, you're probably going to get upwards of 4 or 5 nights. It's really up to you. When it's cold, I'm filling this thing up to make sure that I make it through the night. Second quirk with this system is that regulators go bad. I ate through 3 of them pretty quickly on the trip and kind of resigned to the fact that you just have to carry one all the time. I've since figured out a solution, and the solution came from another problem of snow gathering here and water dripping down from the roof onto the regulator and the lines, causing them to freeze, and that will actually stop propane flow. So after that little issue, I insulated the lines using water hose insulation, and I got a little top hat for the regulator, which is a faucet protector. Since I've added this faucet protector, I've gone through 0 regulators and couldn't recommend it enough. The third quirk with the heating system is the location of this vent. And what I mean by that is that you can't drive down the highway with the heater running. And what I mean by that is that you can't get to your campsite with your camper already slightly warmed up, which sucks. You can drive through town with this off and the heater running, and it usually will stay on. But it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind here is it's really helpful to change out this hose clamp that requires a screwdriver for this hose clamp that does not require a screwdriver. It's another one of those little things that just adds up. It makes it a lot easier to use the camper. So I got a lot of questions about how do I cook while I'm in the camper, and I'll just kind of go over my setup real quick. Obviously, microwave, hot water, cutting board, coffee grinder. We got bowl storage. Water storage is kind of over in here in this bag. And then we have my cooler right here, followed by paper towel holder right there. Oh, this is how I made coffee. I ended up really liking this setup and probably wouldn't change a single thing. The only thing you couldn't see from the outside was where I kept the silverware and spices, and that was in this rack. I would do all of the cooking on kind of the foot of the bed right there using a cutting board and some bowls or whatever I had. I could easily access the microwave, any water, and then also get right into the cooler. Not glamorous, but I don't want to spend any time cooking. The whole goal is to be out doing stuff. So this is just a pretty down and dirty setup. Oh, I also brought a jet boil, didn't use it a single time. So the next thing I'm going to touch on is power. How did I power this thing? Delta Pro 2 is what I went with. And I have the 800 watt charger that charges off like the alternator. Ended up being plenty of power. Glad I didn't have solar panels or anything like that to deal with. Always had the cord, so I think I charged it off of a wall like 2 or 3 times during the whole trip. So not necessary, but was nice to have. You might ask, why? What are these? And this is how I really charged everything. Was first I just had this extension cord that's plugged into the front of the Delta Pro, but you can see with the Starlink plugged in, you can't plug anything else in. So then I got another extension cord to plug into this extension cord, and now I have like 3 options. I think I'm going to switch these out, so take this fancy one off, put this kind of older one on there before I go back to Alaska, because this is really all you need. I really like this because it's long enough that you can run this up onto the bed and charge any electronics overnight. It's also not mounted, so if something ever changed or you just didn't want it, it's really easy to take on and off of the truck. The 2 biggest users of power were these devices, the kettle and the microwave. I never ran the microwave for longer than like 7 minutes, and the water takes like 3 or 4 minutes to warm up. I never had any issues. I mean, if you're not driving for like 2 or 3 days, you might start having problems depending on how much you're cooking. But I really never felt constrained by how much power I had. The bathroom setup's kind of weird. So the first part is the toiletry bag. It hangs from the tune, easy to disconnect and take in when you're going to take a shower. When I'm taking a shower, I always use this bag, and I also filled up 4 days of water every time I took a shower, because hopefully I'm taking a shower every 4 days. The next part was going to the bathroom when you weren't near a bathroom, and that's where this toilet paper trowel is right here, hand sanitizer back there. And then if you're camping at like a casino or anywhere where you can't just like step out the back to pee, have this bottle. Last thing that I found out, like at first I was trying to keep it really civilized and getting out of the camper to pee every time, but you can totally just pee right out the back. Here's how I set up my closet. So it's just a big REI bag that's held on with a carabiner on a tune kind of clips. You can buy those from them. I use these to dry off some of my clothes. So for instance, if I have wet ski pants, I can just clip them on here. This will dry pretty well overnight. You can see all these clothes stuffed behind here. This is stuff that I'm going to wear again. Like maybe I just wore these to sleep in, so I'm going to wear them the next day. A couple towels stuck in here because maybe like I think this was usually my beach towel or just sitting on towel, so I can use it multiple times. And then also I had a mat to stretch on back here. So the second part of the laundry system is actually in the truck. This is where all the dirty clothes went, and it's the same size bag that's hanging in the camper. Basically, when I would get to a laundromat, I could just take this bag in, put all the clothes in the laundry machines, bring the bag back out, do all the laundry, do all the folding, take the other bag in, fill it up, put it back in the camper and use it as a closet, and it was good to go. When it comes to like sleeping arrangements, I don't really have anything special to share other than this pillow storage. When you close the top, you have to put the pillows somewhere, and I was putting them in the cab for a while, and I would drop them on the ground. They would get dirty and gross, and I didn't like that. Or you can throw them on the floor of the camper, which is also gets really gross and wet a lot of the time. So I bought this like cargo tie-down system from Harbor Freight for like $6 and used these little stick-up hooks and basically just hooked it up, and it's worked great. So a couple things unrelated to the camper. I bought these bed stiffeners. I don't know if they've really done anything, but while I was buying them, I made an impulse buy for this little flap, and I thought it'd be nice, but then I was like, it's probably stupid, but it was totally worth it. I couldn't recommend it enough. Snow gets in these tracks right here, and then instead of falling into the camper, it kind of catches it and pushes it out the bottom. I remember thinking it does a bunch of other nice things. I just really would recommend buying one of these. The ski rack ended up being invaluable. Anytime you can keep any type of snow and moisture out of the camper, it's 100% worth it, because that's just going to turn into condensation and stick to the walls. And in that same vein, I added these little hooks to dry towels off on. Really nice when you're at the beach. Just trying to keep as much water out of the camper as humanly possible. I use the passenger seat for all my shoe storage. At night, I would take the ski boots and put them in the back so they're nice and warm in the morning. And it still left this area pretty easily converted into a passenger seat if someone showed up. Other than the best glove dryer of all time, I don't really know what this is, but if you can find one, I would definitely add it to the tune and hang it on the top bar. As far as entertainment goes, I read a lot, so it kind of makes it really easy. I just have a reading light that I keep in my backpack with all my electronics. I keep that backpack with all the electronics on a carabiner, just like the closet. That way it's easy to unhook from the camper and take into the library if I ever need to work. The other thing is Starlink. I didn't think Starlink was going to be a big deal for me. Ended up being awesome, because when you're going down the road and don't have service, you flip it on and you can keep listening to podcasts. If you're interested in learning more about any of the topics that I talked about, or you have any questions, I recommend checking out the blog post in the description. It goes more in depth into everything. I'm able to link to things that I'm using and just really go into depth into why I'm doing things. So I highly recommend checking that out. I'm about ready to kind of switch the tune from a winter setup to a summer setup for my trip back home to Alaska. So I'm really, really excited for that. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching.